Hey guys, we are going to talk about informative and argumentative essays. So hopefully you have your informative essay done, which is the one that we did on the types of government with the executive branch, legislative branch, and checks and balances. If that is not done, it has got to get done. We're going to start checking in with you, making sure you're getting things completed. So please make sure you're getting that done. But we're going to move on now to the next type of writing, and it's going to be kind of different the way we do it. We would normally do this similar to how we did informative. We'd start with one essay or one article, and we'd write an argument essay on it, and then we'd switch to two articles, we'd write an argument essay on it, and then we'd assess you on it. With this different structure that we have to do here with online learning, we're going to simplify it. We're only going to walk you through what it looks like. We're not ever going to have you do it completely on your own. You'll have to do parts of it maybe, but not completely. Just because it's not fair. We're not going to make you do something when we can't teach you in class like we normally would. And some kids don't learn well this way. So we're trying to accommodate everyone as best we can. And we're going to make sure we do that by just walking you through what an argument essay looks like. That way in 7th grade, when you do have to write one, you're kind of familiar with it and you're not completely lost, because you will have to do it next year. So we want to make sure you know at least what it looks like. So we're going to start actually by talking about what the difference is between the two. So informative and argumentative essays. My screen let me move. Here we go. Okay, so the purpose of an informative essay is to inform a reader on a topic. You might be asked to explain, describe, or give facts. So think of the ones we've done in the past. We did the Secant Tunnel, where we gave information about the Secant Tunnel. We described how it was important but difficult to build. In the government essay that we just did, we talked about the functions of the executive and legislative branches, where we informed the reader. We gave facts, okay, and then we explained the checks and balances between the two. So in an informative essay, you're always informing the reader of something. You are giving them a very unbiased opinion, which is what this next one says. In an informative essay, you should not give your own opinion. Being unbiased means that you don't give your opinion one way or the other. You're very kind of flat when it comes to your opinion. So in an informative essay, you're not going to give your opinion. You're not going to try and persuade the reader to agree with something. You're just giving the facts. Informative essays have thesis statements. Okay, and we talked about how that is the most important piece of your informative essay, is that thesis. It tells the reader what the essay is going to be about. It's restated again in the conclusion to remind the reader what they read. And everything in your body paragraphs has to go back up to that thesis. If it's not in your thesis, it can't be in your essay. They should always have an introduction and a conclusion. And then it should have as many body paragraphs as necessary to get your point across. So in the Secant Tunnel essay, we had 2 body paragraphs. We had a body paragraph about how it was important to build, and a body paragraph about how it was difficult to build. For the government essay, we had 3 body paragraphs. We had a body paragraph about the executive branch, a body paragraph about the legislative branch, and a body paragraph about checks and balances. So your essays should always have an introduction and a conclusion, and it should always have as many body paragraphs as necessary to get your point across, to completely answer the prompt, to completely inform the reader. So here are some of the prompts that you might see. It says, using specific details from the passage, the Secant Tunnel, summarize why the Secant Tunnel was important yet difficult to build. So we're summarizing why, we're giving an explanation. Here, we're explaining something, so it's an informative essay prompt. Explain why a jellyfish bloom is harmful to people. Use facts and quotations from both the Student Encyclopedia and Jellyfish Blooms, Is It Our Fault, to support your explanation. Again, we're explaining why, and when we explain, we're giving an informative essay. We are informing our reader. Last prompt. How is the Chinese New Year celebration different from the American New Year celebration? Use facts from both texts to support your answer. Here, again, we're explaining how they're different from each other. So here you might have a paragraph about the Chinese New Year, a paragraph about the American New Year, and then a paragraph about their differences. Or you could have just one body paragraph that tells me the difference between Chinese and American New Year's. It kind of depends on how you want to go about it, but either way, we're informing our reader of something. We're informing them of the Chinese New Year, American New Year, and how they're different. We're explaining that to them. So on the other side of it, we have argumentative essays, which for short we'll call argument essays, but the full name is argumentative. Fancy. So the purpose of an argumentative essay is to persuade the reader to agree or disagree with a stance. Okay? You may be asked to convince the reader to perform an action or agree or disagree with a stance. So let's talk about what that kind of means. You might write an argumentative essay to convince somebody to do something. You might write it like maybe wearing your seatbelt. You could write an argumentative essay about that, about trying to persuade someone to wear their seatbelt. You could write an argument essay to your principal, like to Mr. Bagley or Mrs. Dunlap, and you could write it to them, trying to persuade them to give you recess, because I know you guys don't get really recess time. So you could persuade them to perform an action, or you could persuade someone to agree or disagree with something. You could persuade someone to agree that Ohio State's the best football team. Duh. But you could persuade someone to agree with that. You could persuade someone to disagree with that as well. So there's kind of a couple ways you can do that one. Argument essays should not present both sides of the argument equally. When you write an argument essay, you want to convince your reader of your side. You want to give them some information about the other side. You want to kind of make sure that you talk about it, but you don't want to present it to them equally because you want your side to stand out more. And you don't want to use passive language that doesn't convince the reader. So you want to make sure you're using very strong, active language, encouraging the reader to do something or to agree in a certain way. If you just use passive language, like kind of very laid-back language, like, I think you should do this, no one's going to do it. It needs to be like, you need to do this. Very active, in-your-face, strong language. If you use not strong language, then you're going to not convince your reader of anything. So, argument essays have a position statement. It's very different from, or it's kind of different. It's different from a thesis statement because a thesis statement is very basic, whereas a position statement gives which side of the argument you are going to be talking about. So, when you give that position, you want to make sure you're very clear on which side you're standing on or what you want the reader to agree or disagree with. And it's restated in the conclusion just like the thesis is, but we're not going to call this statement a thesis statement. When we talk about argument essays, we call it a position statement, your position on the topic. It's still going to be in the same place as with thesis statements. It's going to be that last sentence in the introduction paragraph, but it is not going to be called a thesis. We're going to call it a position statement, and you'll see that it's going to be different on the paragraph diagram that we use as well. It'll look different. Argument essays, just like informative essays, should always have an introduction, should always have a conclusion, and have as many body paragraphs as necessary to convince the reader. You could have one body paragraph, you could have 4 body paragraphs, however many you need to convince the reader and completely answer that prompt, which is what's going to be for you. For you guys on the test, it's going to be how many body paragraphs you need to answer that prompt completely. So it can really vary. It's just like in informative essays in that way. Always an introduction, always a conclusion, and then as many body paragraphs in the middle as necessary. So here's some examples of some prompts you might see. Do you think that the helmet awareness program the author suggests will be effective in getting students and their parents to wear a helmet while riding a bike? Why or why not? Support your opinion with details and quotations from the text. A couple things to point out here. Here, when we read this, it says support your opinion. When you're giving your opinion, it's normally an argumentative essay. If we go back and look at the prompts for informative, you notice the word explanation comes up a lot. That's different with argumentative. With argumentative, you're going to see like opinion here, or your stance, something along those lines. But they're asking you to give your opinion. Do you think that this is going to work? Why or why not? So you need to say, yes, it's going to work. No, it's not going to work. Or no, it's not going to work. And then explain why you feel that way. Which character do you think is more helpful, Rini or Dagmar? Use facts and quotations from both stories to support your opinion. Again, we had that word opinion pop up. So here you need to decide which character is going to be more helpful, Rini or Dagmar, and then give evidence. So you're taking a stance. You're saying either Rini is going to be more helpful and giving evidence, or you're going to say Dagmar is more helpful and giving evidence there. But you're choosing a stance, you're choosing an opinion, and you're going to support that with evidence. Last one. Based on the myth, what do you think would happen if Persephone refused to eat pomegranate? Support the pomegranate. Support your opinion with details from the text. So you here, it's a little bit different than the other ones. You need to determine what you think would happen and then support why you think that. So you're giving what you think would happen and then giving evidence. A lot of this can be answered in one body paragraph with an introduction, body paragraph, and conclusion. And that's what we're going to see in the prompt that we're going to start tomorrow. We're going to start a prompt on vending machines and whether you're going to get 2 arguments and you have to determine which argument do you think is more convincing and why. And we're only going to do 1 body paragraph with that. So we're going to have a 3-paragraph essay in total, just 1 body paragraph. But you could write more. It's possible to have many body paragraphs. For these prompts that we're doing right now, a lot of them could be answered in just 1, but you don't have to. You could go more than that. So that's the basics of the difference between an informative and an argumentative. Your homework tonight is going to ask you to kind of put what you learned here into practice. So let me show you what your homework is tonight. Your homework tonight is informative versus argumentative essays, compare and contrast activity. It says you've just finished reading about the differences between informative and argumentative essays. To check your understanding, you're going to complete this compare and contrast activity. Below, there are 3 columns, 1 for informative essays, 1 for argumentative essays, and 1 for both essays. You need to sort the bullet points below into one of the 3 columns based on what you read. Each column tells you how many bullet points should be in each column. So down here are the bullet points. Okay, and all you're going to do is you're going to move the bullet points into the appropriate column. A couple ways you can do this. You can just move them by copying and pasting. You can retype them in, or if you want to print this paper out and write them in, you can do that too. If you print this and want to put this in the writing section of your binder, you absolutely can do that. Again, you don't have to. You can totally just do it online. But this space is there for you to put that stuff in there if you choose to write it. Otherwise, you can just Control-C, Control-V, however you want to do it. Totally up to you. But this is going to be what your homework is tonight. We're going to take a completion grade on it to make sure you get it finished. It's just kind of a checking of your understanding to make sure that you kind of comprehended what we talked about here. If you have any questions, make sure you drop a comment on Google Classroom, or you can shoot us an email. Remember, our Zoom hours have changed, so if you're watching this, Ms. Hurlis is on from noon to 1, and I'm on from 1:30 to 2:30. So if you have any questions, you can drop in and ask us on Zoom as well, or you can drop a comment or shoot us an email. All right, guys, good luck.